On the Michelangelo and He-Man build, I used the Michelangelo head sculpt that you see on the screen that came with that Universal Studios Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figure, the Mummy. This is the secondary head sculpt. I had it, so I'm going to use it for this build. And then on the right hand side is the Turtles in Disguise Playmate version of the Turtles. They're inexpensive. They're like $12, but I'll have a link in the description for the first part, and then there'll be a playlist here in the channel if you want to check it out. Thanks for watching. I went with just Createx straight yellow, and there I'm adding some orange to soften it up a little bit to give it a little more of a mustard look for the shell. Just trying to add some color to it. There's a lot of good tutorials on YouTube with the turtles and their shells and stuff. I'm not doing nothing new here, but I just want to pronounce the yellow more than I did with the brown. But I'm just going in, doing some light coats, making it really a opaque yellow right now. Just straight Createx black, opaque black. I'm going in, I'm going to try to test my hand at the straight lines. Don't have to be perfectly straight because it's going to be covered up with brown, but straight enough where I'm going to try to stay in lines. Had to get a couple coats. This was a little weird for me because the hand steady thing with the airbrush and getting to know the airbrush a little better than what you're used to. I'm used to doing just spraying stuff, but this is a smaller tip on the airbrush and a different airbrush. This is the 2.0 or something like that, or 0.2, whatever, the number 2 needle. And it's a little harder than you think to go in here and just try to keep your lines really straight. But luckily with this project, they didn't have to be laser straight, which thank God they didn't have to be, because it would look like a mess. It took about 2 coats of doing the line work on the turtle shell of just straight black, because obviously the Createx paint's kind of thin and it's going over such a bright color and I prefer it to be light anyway. That way I can manipulate the lines and try to make them not look so sloppy as they are right here. But luckily for this build, something organic, I guess. I keep telling myself, well, it's not going to be perfectly shaded, perfectly straight line, because it's supposed to be a living thing. So luckily I got that on my side. But it was different. It was definitely a different experience to try to keep the airbrush gun straight and doing straight lines. It's definitely something to get used to. Instead of using raw umber, I went with leather brown with Model Air. It's just easier to get to the airbrush. Sometimes I like like I want to use this color, either from folk art or I don't know, craft art, whatever it may be. I prefer the folk art line if I'm going to run it through an airbrush, and it kind of stays consistent of the color, because when you water it down, some of the cheaper acrylics, the initial color seems to be compromised sometimes if you water it down too much or cut it too much. But just going in, I'm trying to hit it at an angle sometimes. I did want to leave some of the yellow inside the grooves of the shell, and I think, what I'm going to paint where the scars are, or the cracks are in the shell there, the imperfections of the shell, I want to put in a red so it looks like he's been in some sort of battle damage or whatever. But just going in, just filling it in, lightly shading back and forth here and there, hitting different angles, and just doing my layers to the desired colored brown that I was looking for. Now that I got the shell basically kind of where I want it for now, and then we're going to move on to the actual spraying the body with this olive green. I didn't want to go with black primer because it would take a lot longer to bring the dark green up than it would obviously with the white primer. I've done that mistake before. So if you're ever going to prime something with the olive green, I mean, you can do it with black primer, but this time I went with the white primer just so I can get the desired color right off the bat instead of trying to build it up in layers. Now that everything's done, here's the first base coat on everything. This olive green turned out really nice because basically what I was trying to do was trying to match the actual head sculpt that came with the Michelangelo Mummy Universal Monsters figure. I didn't want to mess with it too much, so I just left it what it was. I'm just trying to match what that head sculpt looks like right here. So I'm probably gonna put some imperfections as well on the skin by speckling some black on it, just so it looks like imperfections in the skin. Because it wouldn't make sense to have the turtle head look like it has imperfections and the body be nice and smooth. But never mind that now. That's later down the road on the next video, I think. Nice dirty fingernails because I don't like to wash my hands, I guess, after painting stuff. So anyway, here we are. Still using the olive green. I just added a little white to it to the desired effect. I wanted to light it up. I wanted to dry brush it a little bit. Not a whole lot, just to get enough the lighting effect of there's two different greens on them instead of just one solid green. It just wouldn't make sense to have it just one solid color green because the head sculpt does have some light tones of green here and there. But that's all I'm doing right here, just adding some white to the olive green. I'm going to go in and do some dry brushing. So I decided to go in with, this would be like a copper, but I decided to stay away from that color just because the He-Man belt on He-Man is typically orange, so that's kind of close to copper with the original He-Man and all the He-Man franchise, but I changed my mind. I went from black to the loincloth to the belt. I just painted it opaque black with licorice folk art color. I love that black. But everything's kind of coming together. I got the dry brushing done. It's kind of matching the head. It's definitely missing some imperfections in the skin that I'm going to put in later. But here's where I'm at now. Now all the pieces that I primered black, I already knew I was going to go in with gunmetal from Warpaint or Warpaints, whatever that line is for the 40K stuff people use. I'm going in with the gunmetal and just giving it some color, some highlights, so I can add some color to it later when I decide what color they're going to be. At this point, basically at this point in the video or this build where I'm at now, my head space was, I don't know what color these are going to be. I'm just going to keep going until I go and decide later. I didn't want to make something concrete because not every time, but most of the times when I do that, I switch it. I'm not happy with it. So if I don't know for sure exactly what colors I'm going to use, I just go with it and then figure out later what they're going to be. I go with it, and as I go, the colors come to me that I want to use. So right here, not to bore you guys forever, but the shoulder piece right there, just going in. It takes a while. Go real slow. I speeded up the camera and just go hit every little line because I wanted the lines on the belt and on the shoulder pad to be the pronounced color, not the color underneath. I didn't want the shoulder pad to be orange and then all the scriptions and or script on the belt or the shoulder pad, if you want to call it that, or the sculpt, the actual raised part of the sculpt. I just didn't want to make that black, so I did the opposite. So that's what I'm doing here. This is the time-consuming part right here. This is kind of where we're at. It's looking okay. I'm kind of happy. So I love the folk art acrylic paints. I love them. They're kind of thick, but they're really user friendly. So at this point, I decided to make the loincloth even lighter. Like it's just a cotton looking, whitish looking, obviously white. But this is where I wanted to change the colors up a little bit and sort of go out of the actual, that perimeter of colors that He-Man and the Turtles use. In most cases, not all, but just most. I decided to just switch it up and just go. I just wanted to change it up a little bit so it just looked a little different. So here's the shoulder pads and knee pads that we sawed down in the last video. Just some raw umber, went in 3 or 4 coats, nice and dirty fingers, and going in there and getting it crazy. Now here again, folk art. Going to go in there, just take your time. Now I'm going to blacken out his nunchuck part of the utility belt, you want to call it. But I decided to make it, instead of brown on most of the turtles, his chest piece and the back of his belt, his utility belt, you want to call it, for his nunchucks, whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I'm going black with this one. I know they do use sometimes the black stuff on the utility belts on the turtles, but here I am. This is the main color I used on the whole build right here. And again, another just tedious part. After going in and doing the black primer and then doing some dry brushing with some gunmetal, this is where I'm taking the orange and just painting the colors, man. That's about it. Just go in and take your time and put your binoculars on, your eyeglass, reading glasses, or whatever, Coke bottles, whatever you want to call them, and just take your time. I did make the top part of the chest piece here a metal because that's basically like He-Man has the metal chest plate, but I made it from the bottom, as you can see, where I'm going to put the rivets on the very bottom of that chest piece later down here in another video. I made it black so it matches the back of his utility belt that holds his nunchucks. So that's about it. This is where we're at. I know these are kind of long and are kind of like confusing. These videos are all over the place, but like I said, I'm going to make a playlist just for this build. Usually I just do all this and get hours of recording stuff and then edit it all down. I didn't know exactly where I was going with this build, so I decided to do a live, and then I decided to do a video on it, how to do the joints for the hands or whatever, taking pieces off this, taking pieces off that. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching. I know this is kind of long again, like I said, but I think we got 1 or 2 more videos to go with this build, or the finalizing the build. And I thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, man. I'll see you.